Hello everyone, and welcome to a new format for the weekly raid report. Previously my wife was doing this. She's very pregnant and can't quite handle it. So I'll be doing this as a live stream going forward, and the goal of the live stream is to go over what raids were popular last week and what is upcoming. So this is the article we released last night. It's already quite popular, and we'll talk about it at the end. But first, let's go over, and we'll just go straight to the top 10. Raids from last week, number 10, Magneton. So I don't know who cares about Magneton, but apparently it looks cool or something. Magneton's not very difficult. You want ground Pokemon and Machamp, and you can use your fire Pokemon as well. So it's real easy. Estimators, down here 046. You can scroll down. There's 24 things that can do it in like 100 seconds or less. So just like most of the tier 2s, if you pick the right Pokemon there, it's going to be pretty easy. Moving right along, Lapras. Lapras is one of my favorite Pokemon, despite being a little too tanky and not enough attack for Pokemon Go. It's still rather popular raid. It is going to take you 3 people, most likely. If you're level 40, maybe you could do better. But you're looking for, your Electrics, Raikou, and Zapdos, your fighting Pokemon, Machamp and Hariyama. You can use a brand new Mewtwo if you want, with the Thunderbolt, which we'll talk about in a bit. And of course, your Community Day Venusaur will be useful here. And, if you ever want, you can come in here and pick your attacker levels, change it to friends, whatever you want. Right, so if you have some ultra friends with you, we're up to 207, and if we actually pick a weather, let's be rainy. Right, we're under 2. And we can duo it. Pretty easy here with the 166 if you have enough Raikou. And toss in some Zapdos, Mewtwo, and Jolteon. So, moving right along, Articuno is not out anymore. I don't know why people were still searching for it. The way these results work is basically if Google suggests my raid page as a possible page you might want after doing a search, then it counts as what's called an impression, and this is impression-based sorting. So Articuno, obviously you want double rock because it's a flying ice guy. So right on, we're up to number 7 here. Right on, Rhyperior is coming on, so perhaps some people are a little excited about that. That's likely to be the overtake Groudon as the best ground Pokemon. And Rhydon's not too hard, pushing, you do it with less than 2 at level 35 with no, friendship, no weather, no anything. If you have sunny weather, all these grass guys fall down into the 2-man territory. You'll notice they all have deaths higher than 12 here, so you might have to rejoin. I found personally when you have a situation like this, if like your Venusaur comes in and a special happens near the beginning, you can dodge it, and if you can do that like 2 or 3 times, it's usually enough to make it so you don't have to rejoin, and that can be a very significant increase in your chance of actually winning. So I recommend doing that if it's a close one like this, where it looks like each player needs 7. You can often win without a rejoin. Okay. Moving right along, Alakazam. I love Alakazam. Alakazam is actually how I won at Pokemon Go Fest. I won some swag because I had something like 12 Alakazam, I think, just sitting in my inventory. I don't know why I like Alakazam so much. He's cool looking. He has spoons. Psychic Pokemon. He's not quite as good as Espeon, and certainly no Mewtwo. But he is quite a difficult tier 3, sitting at difficulty rating 1. So I suspect a lot of the reason people look for counters is because he's hard, but then they get close and like, if I can just do a little bit better. So one thing I want to show you, so if you enter your own Pokemon, of course, you can look at the results for your own Pokebox. I'm at 0.98, but yes, I do have one Legacy Gengar. If I look at the hardest move, Focus Blast, I'm at 101, right? So I'm gonna have a hard time against Confusion Focus Blast. And so what you might say is, you know, what can I somehow, like what can I do to actually get better? And there's this see what happens if you power up button. Most of my guys are max in this case, my Dragonites, obviously, but my Mewtwo, move up to number 1. And you click on this little button and you get a little pretty graph right here. And you can see, let's change this over to estimator. Right, you start up here at 0.96 and you get all the way down to 0.94 at the end. In this case, it's actually worth it to power up all 12, but you know, for some Pokemon, it might, you know, stop over here at 7 is a pretty good spot. And 5 is actually better than 6, slightly. So that's a good way to find how. Sorry for the squeaky chair, guys. I'll try not to squeak. Find out, you know, how many power-ups. Sometimes this graph will move quite a bit. So here we go. Moving on, number, what is this, 5? Scyther. I don't know why. Scyther's pretty easy. And not really useful very often. He looks cool, but I mean, you're just looking for rock Pokemon. You can use your electric Pokemon. Moltres with Sky Attack is good if you have it. Snorlax, one of my favorites. This is actually what I dressed up as for Halloween, so personal favorite of mine. Did a few raids at Celandro Pier recently to catch a couple Snorlax. They were terrible, of course. Didn't get lucky on those. I did get lucky on a Mewtwo though, which I'll talk about in a second. Snorlax, you're looking for, not surprisingly, fighting Pokemon. It's going to take you 3 people, most likely. Maybe you can do it with 2 if you have the right weather and you have 6 Machamps at level 40, but most people don't have that. Speaking of Machamp number 3, Machamp is the best raid for you to do if you do not have a large amount of counters. This is useful. Oh, someone's asking, is Time to Win really the best for maximum damage balls? I prefer Estimator, which is basically the same as Time to Win, but includes rejoin time. And sometimes that'll matter. We'll talk about the difference between Estimator and Time to Win on Deoxys, because it matters a lot when the boss hits really hard. If you're at a place like Santa Monica Pier where there's a bunch of spoofers and it's always 20-man raids, Time to Win is almost certainly what you're going to want, because you're never going to have to rejoin. And really, you're just hoping to get 1 damage ball, so you want to get 5%, so you want to do better than everyone else who's there when there's 20 people. When there's fewer people than that, and it's, let's say there's 10 people and it's going to be pretty easy, Time to Win is probably the best. But when you're really short on people and you're trying to 3-man or 4-man, you really want Estimator. The glass cannons can be too glassy, and rejoin time is very costly. Yeah. So Machamp, as I was mentioning, the best raid for a new Pokemon, for a new raider to try and collect. We want, you know, if you happen to have double flying Rayquaza, I guess it's okay. But generally, you're looking for psychic Pokemon. Espeon and Alakazam are probably the easiest. I personally end up using quite a few Espeon. my Alakazams, I haven't spent Stardust on them, even though I love them so much. And the Espeons are easier to get weather boosted, right? So you want to have Machamps. Machamps are great against, Tyranitar, Snorlax, great for clearing gyms, and tend to come up on as counters quite frequently. Okay, that was number 3. Number 2, most popular, not surprisingly, a little bit surprisingly, Deoxys. So Deoxys is going to come through his normal form. Now there's a little bit of question on normal form because in the Game Master there's 2 different versions of normal form that have different movesets. What I've put onto Pokebattler is what I suspect they will use for the actual raid battle, but I could very well be wrong. The main difference is instead of Zap Cannon, it's Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt is a much better move than Zap Cannon. It's 2 bar instead of 1 bar. It's going to be much more difficult than Hyper Beam or Psycho Boost if it actually does come out, and it will be a better move to get as well. Thunderbolt is one of the best moves in the game, so not surprisingly, it will be very good if you can get it. It is possible that what would happen is you would fight Hyper Beam, Zap Cannon, Psycho Boost, and if you get then choose which Deoxys you're going to get, and it's either going to be attack, normal, speed, or defense. And the normal form in that case is actually a different Pokemon in the Game Master than the generic Deoxys, and that is the one that has Thunderbolt. So it's possible that when you beat him, you get the Thunderbolt, but when you fight him, it'd be Zap Cannon. So that's sort of my, if I'm going to put money on it, that's sort of what I guess will actually happen. Counters for Deoxys, we're going to talk about the article in a bit, but one thing to notice on here, Deoxys attack has a lot of deaths, as does Gengar, Absol, Sharpedo. These are all glass cannons. Luckily, Deoxys has very slow moves. Hyper Beam, Zap Cannon are both very slow, so if you're able to get specials off, Deoxys attack is very good. Same with Gengar, obviously. Absol is also and Sharpedo are also glass cannons. So that's why they're popping up here. It's also a question about whether we'll have tier 5 or tier 6 Deoxys, but I'll just move on. When we finish off the top 10, I'll talk more about Deoxys. There's a lot to talk about Deoxys. So finishing out number 1, Mewtwo. Mewtwo is very popular. Mewtwo is our first, what we're calling tier 6 raid boss. It has 18,750 hit points instead of the normal 12,500. And this extra 50% hit points makes Mewtwo much harder than the EX raid version, pushing us up into typically 4-man territory. It has been 3-man. That will be for the YouTubers out there for the most part. Everyone else, you're looking for minimum 4 people. If you are full of Tyrantars, Gengars, and Mewtwo's. It's probably safer to go with 5. That lets you pull in, Houndoom, Skizzer, Pinsir, a whole bunch of dark Pokemon, ghost Pokemon, even, generic Rayquazas and Dragonites are good enough to 5-man. The deaths, as you can see, are insanely high. We have 84 up here for Bennett. We have 53 and 61 for our Dragons. You're going to rejoin. You don't want to rejoin twice, and Bennett is close to rejoining twice, which is why it takes a pretty big hit on the estimator compared to Sharpedo, who only dies 77 times, right? And Muck down here has an estimator 444, almost identical to Bennett. So you look at time to win 1216 here, 1281 here, but because Lola Muck will not need to rejoin twice, it is going to be significantly better than it looks based off just time to win. So I hope this explains Liam, who's asking questions, why I don't recommend time to win as a measure. I mean, there is a reason why tanky Pokemon are better besides just saving on max revives. Also, Estimator uses a 15-second rejoin. If you have a poor phone, or you're slow, or you have fat fingers and you're not good at getting back into the raid quickly, the tankier Pokemon do even better. Especially if it's something like Lola Muck, you might only have to max revive 2 or 3 Pokemon to get back in, which can speed you up quite a bit. So there's Mewtwo. So let's go to the graph. This is the exactly how popular it is. This graph actually looked even more skewed towards Mewtwo until the data from Thursday came in. Thursday, of course, had a interesting the Deoxys Raid passes went out, and quite a few of them got revoked, which is unfortunate. And you could actually see it on the my website graph in terms of how many people were on the website. You could see the disappointment, shall we say, as the traffic fell off immediately after the raid passes were revoked. Right, so Mewtwo, 1/4 of all raid searches on Google were for Mewtwo, followed by Deoxys, and then we have a big fall off. I make this on a pivot table. It just keeps going down here, right? O's still on here for some reason, all the other birds, and you can see all the other raids down here. What if we have another? What if Rayquaza comes back, right? Anyways, so let's talk about the big news of the week. Big news of the week is Deoxys. We have a lot to talk about here. So first off, we don't know whether Deoxys will have 12,500 hit points or 18,750. So tier 5 versus tier 6. Here's the tier 5 counters. And we'll talk about it in a second. And tier 6 is slightly different. They're not quite the same, right? Those extra hit points changes the estimated ranking, because Pokemon that didn't have to rejoin before now have to rejoin, and the better Pokemon in general ends up being better. Right, so you can actually see some of the effects. Right, you have Rayquaza move up, but it actually has a breakpoint yet to hit, and Deoxys attack actually drops significantly due to rejoins if the fight goes on longer. So we'll talk about this. So what are we looking at? We have tier 5. We have Deoxys, and he's going to be similar encounters to Mewtwo, of course, which makes him vulnerable to ghost type moves and dark moves primarily, and bug moves as well, but there's no good bug Pokemon comparatively. And of course, Dragon does good neutral damage and is going to be a good filler for most people. So we've added an extra row into our counters, and the reason we've decided to do this is if for most people who are level 35 to 40, Infographic is level 35, no friendship, no weather. So sometimes the friendship bonus is enough to move the breakpoint around. So Rayquaza just needs friendship to get there. Let's answer for Danny. And so at least when I was like level 37, 38, I'm now level 40. My Dragonites were always popping up on raid counters. And the reason is because a level 40 Dragonite is typically going to be quite a bit stronger than a level 30 Houndoom or your level 20 Sharpedo. and your level 20 Absol that you kind of raid one time, and that level 32 Gengar that you powered up just to the breakpoint. Powering up good generic counters like your Rayquazas and your Dragonites is very Stardust efficient, and is highly recommended for, you know, I'll call it mid-range raiders in the 35 to 39 range, before you can get 6 counters for every, like 6 max counters for each. Like I don't have 6 Tyrantars, I don't have 6 Gengars. I barely have 6 between Tyranitar, Gengar, and Mewtwo now at quite a bit into level 40. Most people 30 to 39 are not going to have that, so you're going to have to start going down the list. But it'd be far better for you to spend a lot of Stardust on 1 or 2 Dragonites and Rayquazas, because they end up being good enough for many different Pokemon. Dragon moves are not really resisted by anything important, and it's there's not really any ice raid bosses who will really punish you for having flying dragons, so that they're generally going to be very, very powerful, right? You can also find weather boosted pincers out there. Cacturns are very easy to get. Bennets are a little rarer, but some people think they're cute and they power them up. So this sort of rounds up the top 12 up here. And then we basically look through all the weather to see if there's anything interesting that pops up. In this case, it was Entei pops up as a top 6 counter, and all your dragons go to top 6 counters. And your bug types in the rain go to top 6 counters. So that's basically how we make these infographics. So these up here are top 6, right? This is the next 6, and these are Pokemon that become top 6 with the weather boost. The moves underneath are the move types you're looking for. So Gengar, you can use Ghost or Dark moves, and you want a Ghost special move, happens to be Shadow Ball. And in this case, even non-legacy Gengar that you can just evolve today are good enough to make number 3 counter, right? So we compare this to tier 6. Gengar actually goes up to number 1 if you avoid Psycho Boost. If it is Psycho Boost, it's going to drop way off. So if we go over here, looking here, oh great, right? And this drops a little bit on tier 5, not too bad, right? We go to tier 6. Ah, that was a bug. Let me put that on my list to fix. Tier 6, you'll notice Zap Cannon number 1, Hyper Beam number 1, right? Number 1. Where'd he go? All the way down to 16 with 65 deaths. That's going to be very painful for him. So you can see that changed a little bit. The top 6 are still the top 6. There's slightly different order with the Gengar. And Deoxys attack drops off. And if you look at the number of deaths, it's going to be pretty high. So 64, and everyone else is sitting around 33. Yeah, that's a lot of deaths for what's going to be a short fight. So the general counters don't really change that much. Rayquaza drops back down a bit, and Alakazam pops up. And over here on the in the clear weather, as I mentioned before, due to the deaths, we have Moltres popping up higher. Okay, now there's going to be 4 different types of Deoxys that you catch. There's going to be normal form, attack form, defense form, and speed form. The only ones that are really interesting are the normal form and the attack form. So normal form, I suspect they're going to get Thunderbolt, and the combination of Charge Beam and Thunderbolt should be up there with Raikou, possibly even higher than Raikou on the attack side. Now the downside is you have to live long enough to get off a special. Thunderbolt is a 2-bar special, so that should be more possible. Charge Beam charges energy. You get 15 energy per Charge Beam in 1 second. So if you can survive 1 quick attack, do off 3 Charge Beams and get off your Thunderbolt, and then you'll die. And that's basically what's going to happen. Now there is one other thing that makes Deoxys interesting. Often, if you put Deoxys number 2, your first Pokemon will actually die with some energy, and the energy will sometimes carry over into Deoxys. And due to what's essentially a bug in Pokemon Go itself, you can get extra damage off. So I suspect people who are looking to, set world records may take advantage of, such bugs and get off, 2 Thunderbolts instead of 1 Thunderbolt. But we'll see if that actually happens. Deoxys attack form is crazy high attack. Base attack well over 400, higher than anything else in the game. The defense is extremely low. It's hard to explain how low it is. It only takes 2 confusions from Mewtwo to kill a Deoxys attack form. Which is why general counters were up here to 138 deaths, right? But if it's Psycho Cut, it's down to 56 deaths. Right? What about Psycho Cut Ice Beam? You have the problem, right? If it's a 2-bar move, the 2-bar move is going to come up. For Ice Beam, is going to come out too quickly, and it's going to die, right? But Focus Blast is a 1-bar move. Psychic, 1-bar move. And we can check Confusion Psychic, which is not going to be good. It only takes 2 confusions to kill off a Deoxys attack, and that's not enough time to get your special off, right? Deoxys normal form, though, is, at least currently, we have Zap Cannon, Hyper Beam, and a very, very slow Psycho Boost. So it ends up being useful there. Right, there's tier 6. Just back to tier 5. Right, so Psycho Boost is slow enough that we can get off a Dark Pulse. And to look at the combat log, let me change it to solo attempt. Yeah. Right, we get the Dark Pulse off there, and you can actually survive a Charge Beam. Oh, sorry, you get 2 Charge Beams, and you get 1 Psycho Boost off. Sorry, it takes 2 Charge Beams and Psycho Boost to kill Deoxys here. It gets confusing. I'm sorry. So Poison Jabs. 4 Poison Jabs let you get off a Dark Pulse. You almost get off 2 Dark Pulses here, right? You get no Dark Pulses off here. You get 1 here. So you'll see oftentimes you won't even get off a single Dark Pulse. There are sometimes, if you look at other combats, you will get off 2. I'm probably confusing everyone right now, but that's okay. You're looking for either Poison Jab or Zen Headbutt plus Dark Pulse is probably the best. And that's because Dark Pulse is actually a good move. 50% more damage than Psycho Boost. So even though Psycho Boost gets your stab bonus, same type bonus, the DPS is so low. It's 4 seconds, and it's what, 70 power. Dark Pulse is 3 seconds and I don't know, more power. And pull it up. Right, so Dark Pulse is 80 power in 3 seconds. Psycho Boost is only 70 power in 4 seconds. Right, so that is a significant DPS difference between the two. And not surprisingly, Poison Jab Dark Pulse is a lot better than Psycho Boost. Okay, you can read the whole article. It's up here on the site, and we are 1 minute past time. Does anyone have any questions before we go? I'm not seeing any questions yet. Okay, well, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this weekly raid report. Oh, there's another question, as my wife yelled. Estimator versus overall. Okay, so Estimator is a fairly new sort order. So what it does is it includes rejoin time, 15 seconds, and just does a time to win. Overall is a little different. So for raid bosses, overall is a weighting of how tanky a Pokemon is and time to win. So if we switch to, let's compare Deoxys Raid for Estimator versus overall. Sorry, give me a second. So here we go. On the left, we have Estimator. On the right, we have overall. And you'll notice that the Estimator, when sorted by overall, the first thing you should notice is that the Estimator, when sorted by overall, is slightly worse. Okay, it is not optimized for sheer number of people. It has a little bit of how tanky people are and what to use. So Tyranitar is far tankier than Deoxys Attack. So not surprisingly, it pops up here with a 513 rating. And honestly, due to the way human psychology works, a lot of people are going to like overall rating better. Deoxys Attack getting one shot is no fun for anyone. And Tyranitar is extremely tanky and is only slightly slower than Mewtwo and slightly slower than Deoxys Attack. And people are just going to like it more from a psychology standpoint. The rest of the rankings stay, it starts changing a little bit. Mew pops up and Alola Muck, who's very tanky, right? Only 25 deaths, right? So now we're down to 10, top 10. So overall was my older sort. I still somewhat like it, honestly. It's more consistent. You're less likely to get unlucky and be upset that your Pokemon died without getting a special off. So I hope that explains the difference between estimated and overall. They are very similar. Overall is still 2/3 weighted by time to win. Only 1/3 on power for these raid bosses. So it's still very much a time to win sort. But it does penalize you for dying. Like Bennett's not gonna. Where's Bennett? Does he even make it on here? No, he dies too much. 40 deaths is too many. Right? Okay. When picking Battle Party, how do you like to set up your team? Glass cannons over tankier options such as Gengar, then T-Tars, and Mewtwo. So the way that combat works in Pokemon Go is the first Pokemon that comes in takes attacks quicker. So I was sort of showing that before. I wasn't really highlighting it. Let's look at Tyranitar versus Deoxys, so I won't get confused by the icons. And look at the combat logs. So if you look, you get 3 Zen Headbutts pretty quickly together, right? Only a second between the first and second Zen Headbutt. And then you have, 1.6 seconds for the next Zen Headbutt. And then it starts much slower. Now, 2.9 here. So you end up having 1.5 to 2.5 seconds delay plus the speed of the attack. So you end up having usually around 3 seconds between attacks after the first 3 attacks that come out in about 3 seconds, right? So you generally don't want to put your glass cannon first. What you want for your glass cannon is you want them to die to something like Hyper Beam, and then the tanky Pokemon to die to something like Hyper Beam, and then your next Pokemon comes in, your glass cannon, your Deoxys attack, and during the cooldown of Hyper Beam and during the delay between Hyper Beam and the next Zen Headbutt, right? You have time to get off more quick attacks before taking any damage, right? So something like Deoxys attack, that's getting 15 energy per attack, and in 1.1 seconds, I believe it is. Right here we'll take some damage from the Zen Headbutt, we'll get off the 3 charge beams, and we'll be able to immediately use the Dark Pulse, right? So you get a bonus there. You also get a bonus if there's a bug, and the energy from this Hyper Beam carries over to the second Pokemon, which happens sometimes. And in that case, you'd be able to get off 2 Dark Pulses immediately without using any charge beams, and that'd be extremely high DPS. With something like Deoxys attack. So definitely put your tankier Pokemon first. If you're going to use like a mix, I like to alternate the tankier and the glass cannon. You want the tankier Pokemon to die to the special move, right? The full bar move, preferably. It's not quite as effective if the boss is using 2-bar moves like Thunderbolt, because you can get Thunderbolt followed by Thunderbolt. But if it's a full bar move, it definitely gives your glass cannon more time to attack before the next special comes in. And your tankier Pokemon is much more likely to die to a special move than it is to die to a regular quick move. So while a glass cannon can die to just pure quick moves, right? It only takes 4 Psycho Cuts from Mewtwo to kill a Deoxys attack. So yes, I think that's about all I have on that. Are there any other questions? Thank you for watching. I really enjoyed watching this. This live stream will be up on YouTube, of course, for people to watch. So feel free to share it with people. Leave comments in terms of any adjustments I can make in the future. But I really enjoyed doing this. Thanks for watching, and I had to figure out how to turn this off again. Okay, cool. See you all later. Bye-bye.